Alright, so today I'm going to talk about my Smith & Wesson Model 69 and how I've optimized it for EDC, at least in my opinion. Now, I chose the Model 69 because I like having firearms that have versatile ammunition that can be carried with them, and I don't have to worry about not being able to perform a certain task if the need arises. Obviously, the need arising for, a firearm in general is extremely rare and unlikely, but we all like to be prepared. So I currently carry in it Hornady 44 Special 180 grain XTP. That's primarily what's in the gun, and what I do is I usually carry a reloads with it. I usually have at least one speed loader of 44 Special, and then I do plan on carrying a speed loader of 44 Magnum. I plan on carrying the Underwood Extreme, I believe it's their Extreme Hunter or something like that, but it's one of their lighter offerings, so it's not going to be as recoil heavy as some of their other stuff, and because it's copper, it's already going to be a little lighter recoiling, and it's not going to be as, it's not the hottest stuff on the market, so it should be a good carry option for 44 Magnum. But that's what I plan on carrying with it. And the nice thing about 44 Magnum is, say somebody's hiding behind something as they're shooting, for whatever reason, or perhaps, maybe somebody's coming at you with a big truck. Who knows? Like I said, these situations are extremely rare, but they do happen, and it's something that certainly is on your mind given the current political climate and what's going on. So that's what I choose to carry in it. Alright, so now we're going to start with what I've actually done to the gun to make it carryable for me. Starting with the wood grips. Now, they're very beautiful, I must say, and that's one of the nice things about revolvers is you really can class them up with a set of wood grips. These are actually made by Altamont, but they came off of a Talo edition gun. I got them from somebody, but you can get a version kind of like this from Altamont if you want. These are rosewood laminated, very nice. And the reason why I switched over from the rubber grips is, besides them being much more nice to look at than the ugly black rubber, is I noticed as I was carrying the gun when I first got it, was the rubber grips like to grab your shirt. Now, it's not so much the fault of the rubber grips, they're all like that. I've noticed all revolver grips, especially when you've got rubber like that, they grab your shirt, especially if you're carrying it on your belt. And what will happen is your shirt will start to ride up on the gun, and if you're not careful, you'll be walking around open carrying without knowing it, which, depending upon your state, could be an issue. So in PA it's not a big deal, but I just didn't want to start open carrying without knowing it, and obviously depending upon the state you're in, you might have to really worry about that. So that was one of the reasons why I put the wood grips on. They're actually very comfortable to shoot. They're not as comfortable as rubber would be, but they're still very comfortable to shoot. I like how they feel in my hand, and they do class up the gun, which is of course the most important thing. The next thing I did, and this I did a review on, and I'm going to see how well they focus, but I put on a set of XS Big Dot sights. Now, the front sight is the XS Big Dot with the tritium insert, so it does glow in the dark. I don't know how well that's going to show up, but I did do a review on it if you're interested. And for the rear sight, I used a Smith & Wesson blade, but it's one of their white outline. It's actually a taller blade than what comes on the gun, and it's one of the white outlines, creating a really nice sight picture. Easily able to acquire. I don't know how well that's going to show up on camera, but I changed that out because the original rear blade, is a very shallow, just blacked out blade, which isn't that easy to grab, and obviously it's got the standard red front sight. So the original sights on the gun, absolutely nothing wrong with them. If this was just a range gun, I probably would have never changed it. But being a carry gun, I wanted to try out the XS sights, and I figured what better gun to put these high-tech tritium sights on than a revolver. So I think me and Yankee Marshall are probably the only two people that have done that. I might be wrong, but that's all I saw when I was looking up reviews for the sights on revolvers. So that's the sights I changed out to. I'm really happy with how I changed them out and how they now look. The third thing I did was, in my review of the gun, I talked about the trigger and how poor the trigger was, and I was really kind of disappointed in it. But what I did was I put a Wolf spring kit in the gun. Now, the important thing was I put a full power spring kit in the gun. Reason being, you do not want to put a lightweight spring kit in a carry gun, because especially if you go online and read some reviews, you'll hear from a lot of people that the light power spring kits, while they're usually great, you can have misfires and light primer strikes, which, especially in a carry gun, you do not want. So that was one of the reasons why I went to a light spring, or a full power spring kit. Now, one thing I did run into an issue with was, this is the power rib. And you'll notice, I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but let me see if I can take the other grip off. You'll notice there is a rib running down the back of the spring. Now, even though this was full power, I was getting light primer strikes. And I found the reason is the strain screw is right here. The strain screw comes into contact with the spring where that power rib is. So you've got that little bit, I mean literally you're talking the thickness of a penny, bit of distance between the strain screw and the spring added, and that was giving me light primer strikes. So I did a little redneck ingenuity here, and again, I don't know how well it's going to focus, but I actually took a spent pistol primer and I ground it down to where it would fit, because there's not as much distance between there as the thickness of the primer, and I actually put it in between the strain screw and the power rib, and that fixed the issue. Now, full disclosure, this was not my idea. This was actually found off the internet, off a very old forum, that back when people actually talked on forums, and so I tried it, and since then I have not had a single issue, not a single light strike, not a single misfire. So that seemed to fix it. Now, I'm sure people will say, well, that's kind of clunky for a carry gun, what if it falls out? I'm here to tell you, the amount of pressure that is under, it's impossible for it to slide out, because the spring would have to completely fall out, which is impossible, to then have the clearance for that to fall off. So I've fired a couple hundred rounds through it since then, and that has not moved an inch. So other than that, once I did that fix, and like I said, I don't know how, Wolf usually makes good stuff, I'm not quite sure how they dropped the ball on that one, but that was the only issue I noticed with it. And I did put a lighter rebound spring in it just to try and clean that up, and once I did, it really improved the trigger. I mean, I don't have a trigger gauge here to tell you how much better it is, but just take my word for it that if you have one of these guns and you're unhappy with the trigger like I was, and other people are, I hear that quite common from people that review the gun, that they do not like the trigger compared to old style Smith & Wessons. But if you're definitely looking to improve the trigger, I would highly recommend that upgrade. And if you do start getting, for whatever reason, light strikes, put that fix in and see if that works for you. So that's my what I've done to my Model 69 for carrying it. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them, and have a good day.